Hello, it's Camille, and welcome to Rain or Shine Farm. Yeah, today we're doing a garden tour. I'm showing you stuff that's in the beds. We say hey to the ducks, showing you stuff I got planted in my front perennial area, and then showing some seeds I'm hardening off plants that are almost ready to go outside. Yeah, hope you enjoy. Bye for now. Hello and welcome back to Rain or Shine Farm. We have some shine today. The ducks, I just went and saw them, but they had a pool, but now there's a crack in it, so they had like no water. They drink a ton of water, so they were disturbed. Hi guys. You may notice now we have some poles up. Those are going to be for our fencing. So we'll have to do some concrete for bracing in those, or I guess not for bracing, but for a couple of. All right. Well, hello. Camille from the future here. I'm not totally sure why, but my audio cut out basically for the whole rest of the video. So I'll be doing a voiceover, talking about what I was trying to tell you in the moment. So you're getting the whole shot of the garden right now from the house, basically. So I'm talking about the arches down there. You get to go see the ducks over there. I think they're being kind of loud when I was talking about it. Oh, and I'm talking about different gates. So where the arch is, that'll be one of the gates for our fence. Where the gravel is and some of that dead grass right there, we'll have a 12-foot wide driveway. And yeah, there'll be a gate there, and then there'll be a gate to enter the garden right next to the duck run that I'm pointing to right there. Yeah, so just talking about the fencing that's going up and the posts that we have put in already. That is what's going on. Let's see what else. You can see some potatoes right there at the bottom of the screen in these front beds. I did manage to get my tomato trellises up. I'll show them again in a minute. But yeah, these are potatoes here on the left bed. These ones are a little bit further along than the ones in the other bed. They were planted at the same time, but it's two different varieties. So one of them is most likely just an earlier variety. The ones by the house, the potatoes I have in containers, or way further along, and I'll show those to you towards the end of the video. Yeah, so those are the first beds. There's some radishes in there. That's what that line of stuff is that you can see. These are the tomato beds. I put up the trellises or cattle panels. So these are 16-foot cattle panels. I used them in archways for the beds 3 and 4 towards the end. They're 16 feet long, so you can bend them in half. And then for this one, I take one and I cut it in half, and then you get two 8-foot panels for the tomatoes. And this is my preferred method of dealing with tall indeterminate tomatoes. So here I'm talking about the varieties. So on the right are Oxheart and Brandywine, and these ones are Dr. Witchies and cherry tomatoes on the left. And we have 2 of each. There's onions in the beds as well, and carrots. So I'm pointing down here at some little carrots that are popping up now. Got pretty good germination. I was doing carrots while it was still very rainy this spring, so they generally do pretty well that way. Usually the hardest part about carrots is getting them to germinate. which just means making the seeds the right conditions for them to sprout. Oh yeah, they found a little tomato already, and there are flowers on all the tomato plants. So for us in the Pacific Northwest, this is about as good as it gets for tomatoes. I'm like, wow, I have a tomato growing already. The first day of June. We don't really get ripe tomatoes till usually about August, mid-August, honestly. Obviously cherries and stuff come first. Yeah, I think here I'm just talking about the panels. So yeah, the 8 foot, we take a 16-foot cattle panel and use a Sawzall and cut it in two to make two 8-foot panels. And then I use T-posts and zip ties to just put it up there. And I can do all of the cattle paneling on my own. I guess my boyfriend helped me use the Sawzall and cut it in half, since one person has to hold it and one can cut it in half. But I'm able to put up the panels with zip ties on my own. It's easier with two people, but I kind of just hold them up there and push against it with my body while I zip tie one side and then zip tie the other, and then you can kind of really tighten them. And I do it far enough off the ground because these are indeterminate tomatoes, which just means they will grow indefinitely. And they'll keep putting on more and more flowers and stuff, so they will get massive. So I try to, right now the tomatoes are maybe like 18 inches, 2.5 or 2 feet tall. And they're not even reaching the bottom of the panel yet. So I probably have them about the top of the panels. So they're about 4 foot wide panels. The top of the panel is probably about 7 feet in the air, maybe slightly less, taller than I am. And I use twist ties or like garden tie tape, which is like a green stretchy tape, or random twine I find, or you can use like hay bale twine that you get, that you might have already, to tie tomatoes up. And then I just cut it all down at the end of the season, and that works fine for me. There's fancier ways. You can get clips for tomatoes and stuff if you're doing them on string. But that's what I do. I just use what I have. So I'm pointing at the onions here. These are Walla Walla onions, and they are starting to bulb. So I think that's what I'm talking about here. These are starts that I bought from the farm store near me, probably in late March, early April. Our soil's dry, even though I just watered it. I was watering it about 2 days earlier. But it was very windy, so I feel like the sprinkler was not really drenching the beds how I normally want. So this is the other tomato bed. There are peas in the middle, so peas are more of a spring plant, so they, are climbing already. They're kind of using the tomatoes to climb right now. I have a row of carrots there that had really good germination, actually. I'll have to thin them. We have dahlia, have my pansies there I'm pointing at. And then, yeah, peas in the middle. Those are snap peas. So once it gets warmer, like over the next month, they'll probably have to come out, and then the tomatoes will be big enough by then. I can tie them to the panel, and they'll be really starting to get a lot of branching and stuff like that. Trying to see what else I'm talking about here. All right, so this bed 3, has some calendula, some flowers. I have loofah gourds at the back. The thing on the left there is a lunaria flower. I think I'm going to zoom in a minute, but yeah, so I'm hoping I'm going to have all these squashes and beans and pumpkins and watermelons to climb my archways. Um, I do the beans every year, and those go well. I've done the loofahs. They kind of vine like a cucumber does, where they're not super thickly vined. These are chickpeas I'm pointing at here. Those are bush beans, so they grow in the shape of a bush, whereas pole beans grow on a pole, or for me, I put them on a trellis because they'll twine themselves around it, and they'll climb a good 8-10 feet if they can. They usually climb like all the way over the trellis to the other side, the archway. I have a dahlia there that's starting to get a bud, a Cosmo. What else here? I have some pansies. Yeah, those are all the chickpeas. So these are just some old seed I had. So I went ahead and planted them all. And here, so I have loofah on the right-hand side here that will hopefully climb this trellis. They haven't done much. They're getting a little bit bigger. They've probably been in for almost a month now. But hopefully they're just getting lots of lovely roots and they'll start climbing soon. I did transplant them. Most squash of any kind plant, whether that's like summer squash, winter squash, gourds, pumpkins, they don't really like their roots disturbed, so usually people direct sow them. So these are pumpkins that I direct sowed, so those are coming up. So you can tell, like, I did the loofah inside. It was probably the same height like a month ago, even 2 months ago. And then they haven't done a whole lot since being outside because it hasn't been, I guess we've had warm days, but it was 36 Fahrenheit like 2 nights ago. So that's quite cold for squashes. So these are all the beans. These are called Blauhilde beans, as I put here. They're a purple bean. I like to eat them fresh off the vine. They're kind of like a green bean or almost like a snap pea, a little fuzzier than a snap pea. And then, but they will twine all the way up the arch, and I get a ton of beans this way. That's my preferred method of growing beans. I don't really like bush beans. I've grown black beans almost every year, and I think total over like 5 years of growing, I have maybe 3 cups of beans. So, obviously I have gotten more, and that's a lot of seed, but bush beans take up a lot of space. So here I think I'm pointing at some watermelons and some other pumpkin stuff that's coming up. I think those are the watermelon. They look similar to the pumpkin seed until they start getting their true leaves. So yeah, here I'm showing you my plant marker that says sugar baby watermelon. So those are some watermelon seeds coming up. Those I planted in a mound, just like you do other squashes. They are considered heavy feeders, which just means they like a lot of nutrients. They like warmth. And there's some little sprouts sprouting up. More carrots over there. I invited the neighborhood kids over and they helped me seed some stuff, so we have a little bit of chaos seeding. Here I planted sunflowers. That's kind of the northmost end of my beds. It was old seed that was molding, so I just planted all of them. So we'll see if any of it comes up. I have sunflowers inside that I sprouted from good seed. So I'll transplant those in the next couple of weeks. So here's the view, from the north end of our garden. So our house is on the south end of the garden. So obviously great sun, full sun for, I don't know, probably 10 hours. They have no shade in the morning. They get a little bit of shade come, let's see, it's like 4 or 5 p.m. right now when I'm recording this voiceover. And yeah, they're almost in the shade now. So, and it's bright at 5 a.m. here right now at this time of year. We're close to summer solstice. So, yeah, so they get a lot. Obviously, they get probably 12 hours of sun, so full sun is considered 6 hours. So if you ever see that plants need full sun, that just means 6 or more hours of sun. So, right, obviously 12 hours of sun is twice as much. So I'm going to have to really, I'm going to be creating shade in my garden. I'm going to be watering a lot. That kind of thing. I was showing the ducks there. So here I'm going to go over and show you some of the front plants, my more perennial area right now. This bed was already in place when we bought the house. It has, I don't know, 100 more plants than it did. I think it only had like 6 plants when we bought it, but I just went to the Portland nursery and got that rose and echinacea recently. And I've been planting everything mostly that I had in containers into the beds because I have some soaker hoses here, which are what you see on the ground, that I'm going to be using to water this. These are the container potatoes, so obviously they are a lot further along, and here I'm showing you that they're getting some flowers or, buds. So when they start to flower, then fade back and start to die back, that's when they're about ready to harvest. So, couple weeks probably left for these ones, and these I all planted in like March. So that's about right for me. We can plant pretty early and these are Purple Majesty potatoes. Yeah, there we go. Majesty. um So I have groupings of 3, basically. So a couple, maybe 4 or 5 different types. But yeah, they're getting flowers already, or they're getting buds. So once they flower, they get lovely purple flowers. Then the flowers will die back. The plants will die back, start to turn like yellowy brown. They look like they're dying. That's when you will harvest them. So I have some snapdragons there on the left. Let's see, some trees. I have some raspberry here. You can't really see them, but these are all stuff I planted from my like cuttings from my old yard. There's an apple tree here. And I'm pretty much just trying to plant everything that's not gonna like take over. Like I have some other mints and some other stuff that I'm gonna keep in containers, but pretty much everything else is getting planted because it's gonna be way easier to water all of it. I'm not sure why I turned around there, but I guess maybe I'm talking about this is north facing, so it doesn't get a lot of sun. Which for these kind of plants, that's okay. They maybe get like right now, you can see those ones. They get like a couple hours in the afternoon, but they're already shaded actually, like a good bit right now. And then a lot of it gets like no direct sun, which is okay for some plants. What else am I talking about here? Oh yeah, I have Jerusalem. Oh yeah, these are the grapes that I got. So I will be planting those in containers mostly because I'm not gonna have a final location for them for like a year probably. Gonna build like an arbor or something for them to grow on. So I'm probably gonna put them in pots so that they can grow and do well, but that I can move them once I'm ready to put them in a final location. This is an azalea that was here when we bought it. We have a hydrangea in the back, the Spanish lavender, the vine maple, and like one other plant were here. That's an agastache. What else am I talking about here? Yeah, there's the vine maple. So I planted a bunch of herbs over like winter, spring. I've got some flowering plants, some red ones in particular for the hummingbirds, because I prefer to feed the hummingbirds with flowers versus a feeder. There I'm showing you what this is. Pagellis Colorburst Deep Red. That came from the Portland Nursery. My bird bath there. What else do I have? Peas in this wine barrel with some strawberries. And then I have my green stalk over here. So I did move it towards the front. I'd been telling you I was going to do that because, again, my peas were starting to get unhappy. They were drying out a lot. I watered them and also fertilized the whole green stalk with using a liquid fertilizer, which is really easy for the green stalk, obviously. And I'm getting lots of peas right now. So they were kind of getting bitter. Some plants like that get bitter when they aren't getting enough water or getting too much sun. So they taste a little better now. So yeah, I have that back or in the front now. The peas are a little happier. And then I did hook it up to a watering to my spigot. So I'll show you. Oh, there's some strawberries going. So I have had some strawberries. They're probably going to be slightly less happy in this shade, but they'll be okay. Um, it's still pretty bright over here. What else am I showing you? Yeah, the peas. Here I'm showing you the watering. So I have a hose hooked up to the green stalk to water. It fills pretty quickly, so I don't actually think I'm going to put that one on a timer, even though I have that Bluetooth timer, so that's where the water gets dumped in. I have this like cap on top, so to protect it from getting a lot of bugs in it and just to keep the water from evaporating as much. I have the soaker hoses, like I said, that I'm going to use to water the front bed. Um, and I'll put another one over here. That's just a normal hose right now that I've been using as I've planted stuff. But yeah, I'll have these 3 lines of soaker hoses down like the length of the bed. I'll have one more and they'll all be hooked together. And I'll probably use the Bluetooth timer to water those probably a couple times a week. As we get into summer, I'm going to plant that blueberry. I've actually done it since I filmed this. Again, I'm trying to get everything I can out of pots because it's going to be way easier to water with soaker hoses in particular if everything's in the ground. Because then I can just put it on a timer, check and make sure, it's distributing enough water and automate the watering system because in the other part of the garden, like we don't have any automatic watering yet, and it's probably going to be a bit. We'll probably do soaker hoses as well, and then just hook them up and do timers like manually this summer. I've just been watering them overhead right now, in the early evening. Not sure what I'm showing here, but yeah, that's the whole front bed area. Eventually, I'd like to get more wood chip and cover this whole area because it's a couple inches down now. And with the soaker hoses in, they'll do better if they're covered. Sometimes the water like spurts out in some places or it'll just evaporate really quickly. So ideally it's a little bit covered. I do have some trees, so I have a walnut tree there. That will not be staying there. Probably none of the trees are, but I'm going to treat this like a nursery bed, basically. So for maybe the next couple years, I'll grow plants on in this area. They'll get bigger, and then I can move them out to the fenced garden area once we're done with that and have areas for them. And I have my plants picked out. These are Jerusalem artichokes or sunchokes. They're like a bulb or like a tuber, sort of. They look like sunflowers when they pop up, but they can spread a good bit. So I'm probably not planting those in this area. I'll probably plant them somewhere in a corner in the garden and then possibly other places on the property. But those are one thing that will stay in a container for a bit. But yeah, I planted the snapdragons, I planted the blueberry bush, and I planted the other flowering stuff I had in containers that I'd moved from my old house. Those are all planted in the ground now. I did that after filming this, so I don't know what I'm talking about here, but the tall thing in there is an evening primrose, and those were seeded from my old yard. There were like hundreds of them in my old yard that I didn't plant. And they're quite pretty. They're like a evening blooming flower. That's why they're called an evening primrose. So they open at like dusk. So it's really cool to see. And obviously it helps different pollinators because it's open at a different time. It has some like caterpillar larvae, I assume, on it. It has some kind of weird leaves. I'm not totally sure what's going on there. If they're just unfurling or if there's some, I got some of that like eggs on me when I touched it. Yeah, I'm not totally sure what's going on there. Let's see. Yeah, this are an apple tree. I can espalier them, which is like where you horizontally grow them on a vertical, like a fence, or here I would do it on the house. You could do it with wire, um, and basically train it horizontally along the house. Because this is north facing, it's not really great for that. If it was south facing, that would be better. It would provide some warmth. Right now, it's going to be quite cold, which could be okay for fruit trees, but um, so I did plant them I didn't plant them in front of the windows so that if I did choose to do that, it would be okay. But yeah, and then over here I have a blueberry, another apple tree, a rose, like a miniature rose that I got from a friend, just so it was like it was like a house plant basically. Um, that I divided up and planted outside. This area is quite wet, so I planted the blueberry in the ground. The container was like um holding on to way too much water in this area. The hellebores are kind of happy over here. They're a winter blooming, and they're more of like a shady, like woodland plant. And then, yeah, so the flowers are a little past at this point, but the other one's actually going to bloom soon. And then I got this very fragrant rose. You can see the kind of like gravel right there. That was what was at the bottom of the blueberry pot. So that's part of why it was so waterlogged. I had put it in there for drainage, but I think I had added soil on top of it, and I think it was like too silty. So I don't know. The blueberry was like that thing was holding on to way a ton of water, and it was probably not good for the apple tree. The blueberry was probably okay with it. They like a lot of water. That's a walnut sapling, also planted graciously by the squirrels in my old yard. They would plant the walnuts everywhere in our beds, in the ground, obviously. And so I was always pulling out walnut trees. So I did save some of those when we moved in case I wanted to have a walnut tree. It's an English walnut in our new location. Free trees. Yeah, so this is like it's going to be a very nice perennial area. Um, Getting some blueberries on, they're growing. So yeah, the blueberry seems to be pretty happy there. It gets 0 direct sun. Seems to be doing well though. Looks pretty good. It hasn't gotten, they've done better in containers. In my old yard, they would get eaten in the wintertime by the bunny rabbits. So that's part of why I put them in containers. I got them off the ground, and I could control the water a bit better in the container. Making sure they were getting enough because they were not where they were in my old yard. But now that I'm here and I have very wet soil and these a little shadier areas, they're hopefully going to do very well here and thrive. Um, Yeah, anyway, I think I'm just talking about that it doesn't get any direct sun here. This is north facing, so it maybe gets like a tiny bit in the morning, but the apple like I'm showing here, I don't think it was doing super well being waterlogged like that, but hopefully it'll be a bit better. And these are growing in a sort of guild, like they're growing together, the apple, the blueberry, and the rose. Um, yeah. I think that's about it. There's the garden view. All right. So, yeah, hopefully you appreciated that. Hopefully my audio works next time, but yeah, thanks for checking it out. Oh, so this is what I'm hardening off right now. Here's all the peppers. I think I have 7 here. I still have the extra tomatoes that I'm keeping alive for now. And then I bought some lavender at the Master Garden sale that I still have, trying to harden off. Um, and then these are borage. They've been getting a little damaged by my heat lamps because they are too tall. These are hollyhocks. I have zinnia and some peppers that I finally did get started from seed. They're quite tiny though, so I don't know if we're really going to do much this year. And then these are pumpkins back here. So I have two. Where's the other pumpkin? There it is. To go out. So pumpkin, I guess I didn't write the type. Maybe I didn't know. So yeah, I'll get those out. I should probably do it this week. So these have been hardening off. I think today they'll be at 6 hours outside. So I should really harden them off for the rest of the week. Getting up to more like 8 to 10 hours. The peppers are actually ready. I've just been bringing them outside every day. As you can see, they're already producing a pepper here. Oops. And flowering. So they really need to get in the soil. So I'll probably be doing that later today. So maybe you'll see that in next week's video. It's been quite windy. So the peppers are doing well. The borage will go out as well once it's hardened off, and the pumpkins. Get those in the beds going along.